I'll tell you about Swede, okay? Swede was a career military Army guy. He had been busted maybe 6 or 7 times. He'd work his way up to sergeant, and then he would slug somebody, or he'd do something, and he'd get busted down again. And when I met him in Vietnam, he was a corporal on one of the gun crews, and he's a big guy, okay, great big guy, and he had these, 2 front teeth that would come out kind of like this, and I like to say he had the teeth of a rabbit in the face of a water buffalo, And he loved to play poker. I mean, he made more money playing poker than he did in his pay envelope. By the way, our pay over there, you know how much money we got for combat duty? Just take a guess. Extra pay for getting shot at all the time.
10%. I know, we got 20% for sea duty during World War II.
Yeah.
20%.
We got $50.
Wow.
Yeah, extra $50 for combat pay.
What would your pay?
Well, I know in basic.
Depends on your rank.
Pardon?
It depends on your rank.
Depended on your rank. Yeah, absolutely. And in basic, I was in E1, which E1 is so low, you don't even get a stripe on your.
$21 a month.
Huh?
$21 a month.
Well, it had worked its way
When
up.
I started in.
21. It had worked its way up to $98 a month when I was in. And I think by the time I got to Vietnam, I was a sergeant, so I was an E5, and I think my pay was like $250 and maybe another 50 for combat pay. So I think I was pulling down a grand total of maybe $300 a month, something like that. But you know what? I had free food. I had, as they said, an all-expense paid vacation. Okay.
Free ammunition.
Free ammunition, a place to sleep, even though it was a bunker, a little sandbag bunker about this high.
One thing you were promised medical care the rest of your life.
Yes, right. Medical care in case you got something blown away on you. Yeah.
The rest of your life.
Yeah.
You got out.
So Swede, anyway, here's a Swede. One of our big complaints being out in the field and being in a remote area is that we did not have access to women, okay? Hooch girls, prostitutes, whatever you want to call it.
Seagulls.
Seagulls?
That's what the Navy calls them.
Seagulls. We call them the ladies, all right? But the guys in the rear, okay, who were in these big air bases and these naval bases like you guys, okay, they had live-in girlfriends that would polish their boots and do this and do that and literally live with them. Some of them actually married, at the end of the conflict, but most of them did not. And out in the field, we were not. First of all, there was no back and forth. Okay, rarely did you get to the rear. I was out in the field for 6 months before I had to leave into the rear. And I mean, it was primitive. I mean, it was in the middle of nowhere, and we lived in these sandbag bunkers, and it was pretty primitive. So our big complaint always was they would not let the prostitutes from town come on out, all right? That was against the regulations. So Swede, one day, calls me aside. He said, "Hey, come over here, I want to show you something." And he pulled me over to his hooch there. We call them hooches, okay? And the sandbag, these were just sandbag bunkers, maybe 6, 8 feet wide and maybe 6, 8 feet deep, something like that. There's 2 guys in them, okay? And he called me over and he said, "Look inside," I looked inside, and there was this Vietnamese girl, little Vietnamese girl. I mean, not a little girl, but a young woman sitting on his bunk. I said, "What in the world are you doing here?" He said, "She's my hooch girl." I said, "How in the world did you smuggle her in here?" I mean, we were airtight. I mean, we had barbed wire, and I mean, it was a pretty tight little place. He said, "I brought her in my duffel bag." I said, you know, you can't have her here. He said, yes, I can, nobody's gonna know. I said, well, who knows? He said, well, you know, and a couple of my guys in the country, but that's it, okay, that's it. And he said, I gotta tell you, there's no hanky-panky going on here, I'm not running a whorehouse here, okay? I said, all right. And I said, well, what exactly are you gonna do? He says, she's gonna stay in my hooch during the day, and at night, when she walks around a little bit, I'm gonna put a steel pot helmet on her and a flak jacket. That's what we had to wear at night. You had to wear your steel pot, you had to wear your flak jacket, and you had to have your M16 with you. That was those three things you had to have. And every once in a while at night, I'd see this little short GI about this big with a steel pot kind of floating around the battery. Well, that lasted for about, maybe a week, okay? You just can't keep something like that secret, okay? And our first sergeant, you know, the top sergeant got wind of it and, you know, called the hall to her. And I remember the day that she had to leave and had to leave through the main gate. You know, the guys were just standing outside the fire. They were just waving goodbye to her. She went back to town. But that was Swede. You know, he was always pulling stuff like